Ike, we talking recruiting
Yeah.
tonight. I know that hasn't been, one of the topics that you just
I don't know nothing. So I don't say nothing when I don't know nothing. That's the best thing to do.
and usually, again, I never forget when, Falk was flipped from FSU. I
Yeah.
remember you got real excited. You're a man of your word. You
Yeah.
get excited about these recruits once they've signed.
When they sign, that's when I turn up right there.
Yeah, that's when you turn up. But a large contingency of our Auburn family are turned up now because they want to know who's coming to Big Cat. And I got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Again, you said you don't know nothing, but I know somebody who do.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, I got Dukes the Scoop is joining us. Dukes, what's
Yo,
good, man?
what's up, baby? How you doing? What's up, C? What's up, Ike?
Yeah, man. Ain't too
Man,
much, man.
listen, it's
Appreciate
all
it. Jumping
about
on the
you,
live
man.
stream with us, man. It's been a
E-
while since we did this.
Man,
Everybody can't sit down and talk to Coach Prime and
Yeah.
all over the
Kirby
country.
Smart. I
And
see you got the Kirby Smart situation popping, you know what I mean?
hey,
God is
man,
good,
God,
ain't
hey man, God good, man. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
he? Yeah, man. God probably is calling in your life. So hey, listen, I'm
Hey,
I'm I'm
listen, man.
happy.
I don't get an opportunity to say it. I do get an opportunity to say it, man. We got to say it in front of the art, man. I'm proud of you, man, for doing all the hard work,
Indeed.
man. Continue to do your thing, man. Definitely proud of the work you're doing over there,
Indeed.
man.
Man, much appreciated. And the same to y'all, man. It ain't everybody who can have people doing $5.99 subscriptions because they content is that good. So hey, man, hey, I know I can't. So hey, man,
I'm
kudos to
sure
you
if
guys, man.
if you decided you wanted to do it, somebody will pay for it, man. You got the scoops. That's what they want.
I
Yeah.
tell you what, man, it may hey, we might have to finish some of them conversations we've been having.
Yeah, let's make it happen, man.
For sure.
Indeed. Listen. Let's get into talking about Big Cat. It's a big weekend, Dukes, as you already know. This Saturday's Big Cat weekend has been the one of the larger recruiting. It is the largest recruiting weekend to me of the year for Auburn, where a lot of the big targets are coming onto the plains, hanging out for Saturday. Some guys are coming in on Friday. Um, before we get into the visitor list and what you expect, State of the Union, how do you perceive where Auburn is currently right now? I think they're right outside the top 10 in terms of depending on what site you're looking at. Hugh Freeze wants Auburn and he's aiming for a top 5 recruiting class. Kind of where do
Mhm.
you think this staff stands right now?
I think you see Auburn recruiting ways. They like to make a splash when they do recruit. I think there are
Yeah.
some guys who may be silently committed right now that they feel really good about that they'll be revealing soon. I know some. I'm positive there's going to be somebody commit at Big Cat. I don't know who. Somebody's going to commit at Big Cat for sure. And I just like the way they're positioned based on how early it is in the cycle and how well they're already doing. You got to think in previous years, the past 3 to 4 years, when it was this time at this time of the year, we were in
Yeah.
Auburn was in the 20s or now you see Auburn moving into that top 10, top 12 range right now, and they haven't even hit their second win yet. This is
Right.
just their first round of guys. So when you look at the guys, when you look at that Big Cat visitor list, I mean, 6 or 7 more recruits is going to be huge. And I think the most important part of all of this is the offensive lineman recruiting. It's been an Achilles heel for Auburn for years and years and years. It's not recent. There's always been an issue with the offensive line recruiting. And even last year, I said 2025 was a must-have class because this is probably one of the deepest O lineman classes in recent history.
Yeah.
Auburn had to do something, and they went out, showed and proved, and they're picking their guys. They're not just getting the low-hanging fruit. They're getting guys specifically for what they want to run. So shout out and kudos to Jake Thornton for identifying the people that he wants, the athleticism that he wants, and capitalizing on it by closing the deal. Right now, getting people to go verbal or getting people to go public is better than not. I know a lot of times we don't get excited until signing day, especially Ike, and I don't blame him. I mean, shoot, matter of fact, like just a reference to Ike's point, had an interview with Kirby Smart earlier, and I asked him last year, I said, hey, when did you know you were getting KJ Bolden? He said, I didn't know I was getting him until he signed. He said, I didn't celebrate until he signed the dotted line. So when he came out and he told us he may come and all of this other stuff, I didn't celebrate until he signed the dotted line. And I think that's very fair. But in this case, where we like to read tea leaves and we want some type of indicator of how the class is going to end up, I think if you have a top 5, top 6 class on paper going into signing day, it's going to be really hard for you to fall out of the top 10. So I think that by getting these verbal pledges, I think it does wonders for the program and just to boost the morale and to let people know that Auburn is now a destination place. As over the past few years, it's been we can't get a 5-star. Lord help us. But now it's he's recruiting Hugh Freeze's staff. They're recruiting with the juggernauts in the game. So I think it's a big deal.
I think you make a good point too about the fact that we have 16. Auburn has 16 commitments at this point, and in, to your point, in years past, Auburn would have like 6 or 7. It would be further down in the recruiting rankings, and then the concern would be we need some. Auburn needs some momentum, and I think you have enough momentum to where you're in the conversation already with another group of guys who are either silently committed or leaning Auburn's way. Let's talk about a couple of those guys. 2 guys who are expected to be a Big Cat: 4-star safety Anquan Fegans of Thompson. And this is an area that Auburn has had very difficulties recruiting in years past. They got a signee there last year, and it's almost like this is starting to become a bit of a pipeline for Auburn. Well, Anquan Fegans, who many people have actually considered an Auburn lean already. Auburn has been in good position for him. You also have from Thompson, Jared Smith. Depending on what site, he may be a 5-star, 4-star, but he's an edge player, one of the top players in the state. Your thoughts about those 2 guys who are expected to be a Big Cat and where Auburn sits for them?
Yeah, I think Auburn has struggled a little bit recruiting Thompson, but they also didn't have Charles Kelly, who had this when he was at Alabama. He did not struggle recruiting Thompson, and he didn't struggle anywhere in the state of Alabama. So having Charles Kelly on the trail, who has a lot of familiarity with the family, based on his brother's recruitment, then you think about where I definitely talked to Coach Kelly, and I looked at it. He kind of lit me into his recruiting board, and we just kind of swapped notes about who we liked at safety. And Anquan Fegans was the number 1 guy on this board. It didn't matter who, what, where, what, nothing, no ranking. It was his board. And what Coach Kelly likes about Anquan, or AKA New Boy, what he likes about New Boy is his versatility positionally. If you look at the great defensive backs that Charles Kelly has had, and I'll just go to 2. We'll go first. We'll talk about 3. We talk about Jalen Ramsey, who was able to play all over the secondary, safety, corner, and slot. We talk about Derwin James, who was able to play all over the secondary, safety, corner, and slot. And we talk about Brian Branch, who had a phenomenal rookie year with the Detroit Lions last year. And what was he able to do? Play safety, perimeter, and slot. So I think New Boy is one of those guys who has that type of athleticism. He has the feet that Charles Kelly is looking for. When another thing that he really loves is to see guys who have great feet who can play a little basketball. He said, and these are guys who can play basketball. When we talk about a guy like Jared Smith, he's a 5-star in my eyes. Like you said, depending on where you look at, when you look at his length and his lower bend, I always say if you got a guy that tall who can shrink himself, that gives you the ability to play the long arm game, and it also allows you to put your foot in the ground and make a diagonal and get to the quarterback at an angle. And I think that's really hard to do when we talk about turning the corner. Once you're able to get that lean, you put that foot in the ground. So imagine this. You got a 6'6" guy who can long arm the offensive tackle, pull him, or drag technique, drop the shoulder, get around the corner, and still get there with explosion. That's what Jared Smith is, and that's what he projects as one of those type of guys. His body is still lean. He has a lot of room for him to grow, and I don't think he'll lose his speed or his explosion. I saw him at the Under Armour camp in February. He looked like a man amongst boys against the top players in the country. So, yeah, I think sometimes I think some sites are looking at Jared Smith and saying, well, his frame isn't as developed as it could be when you look at as far as his 5-star status, but nobody is saying that he's anywhere outside of that range, and nobody's going to put him outside of the top 50. I don't care who it is. So I think those are 2 huge additions to the defense, especially Jared Smith. If they can pull this off, Auburn hasn't had one of those game changers in a minute. Keldrick Faulk was by himself. Being able to stack a guy like this with the Keldrick Faulk for him to learn from, and you see how Keldrick Faulk developed. Now he can play seriously on the defensive end, because at first we thought he could have been a stand-up linebacker. Right. But now the way his body is developed, you see something different in him. I think Jared Smith has the same thing, but I think he is going to be more of a pass rusher just based off where he is right now. But I think when Auburn is good, they always have a dominant defensive lineman, and you don't know who it's going to be. I remember the year Nick Cole was dominant. Before the next year, he didn't do as well, but that year that Nick Cole was dominant, you could tell. The year when you had Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson, you could tell. When you had Nick Fairley, you could tell. And I think that when Auburn is good along the defensive line, the record follows, and there are a lot of wins and a lot of toilet paper is thrown. So I think those are two of the more important recruits, but more importantly, I think Jared Smith is a must-have.
And he definitely has the height to fill out, even if they don't think he has the size right now. So again, put him in the strength and conditioning program. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, give him to Coach Dom, man. Like Coach Dom,
Yeah.
one of the best in the business. So yeah, you give him to Coach Dom, he's gonna be fine.
Yeah. A guy who is expected to be let's talk some possible flips here.
Okay.
Let's start. I've been hearing that wide receiver Derek Smith, who's a Bama commit, but he's someone who's been on Auburn's radar early in the recruiting cycle. I think he's out of Selma, if I'm not mistaken. He is expected to be at Big Cat, and apparently Auburn is still in after him pretty tough. You know anything about this situation here with Derek Smith?
Yeah, I think Auburn got after it pretty hot and heavy early on. I think that they stayed in the recruitment. I think Coach DeBoer at Alabama, his staff did a great job of getting him up there. And what they've been able to do really well at Alabama is being able to capitalize on their visits. And that's one of the guys where he left a visit, boom, I'm committed. Surprised a lot of people. But Auburn stayed in it. They never wavered. And now you're getting to visit the Big Cat weekend as he is committed to Alabama, which says a lot in itself. He may be the most athletic player in the class in the state of Alabama this year. Truly athletic, plays a lot of sports. Basketball, track, doesn't matter. Also, when you look at what he's able to do with the ball in his hands, that's where he has a lot of shape, great hips, and he can play some safety too. I mean, he's a guy who actually has real two-way potential. I think he's really important. I think that Auburn has a really good shot here. And I think as long as they stay the course, if you start to see the Jared Smith, if you see Malik Archer, so Malik Archer, who's now a 5-star, he'll be there. Okay, so you keep Malik Archer in state. Okay, now you get Jared Smith to stay. Then maybe can you get a Zion Grady to come along? Like now you got Eric Winters, and then you start to look at the top 10, New Boy Fagans. Then you start to look at the top 10 in Alabama, and you start to see more blue and orange than you've seen in a long time. That starts to wear on people where it's a wave. Alabama, when they began to dominate the state of Alabama, they had the wave. It was cool to go to Alabama. The blue and orange didn't look as good. And then you also have to realize one thing, and I always say this, a 17-year-old right now does not remember Auburn being dominant. They don't. Right. They don't remember the Cam Newton year. That was in 2010. That was 14 years ago. They were 3.
Right.
In 2014, well, kick 6, 2013, 2014, that whole era right there, they were 7. Like they don't remember. So it's really important for them to have proof of concept of real guys, 5 stars, 4 stars wanting to go, and Auburn being the dominant program when it comes to recruiting in the state. And I think that's going to have a lot to do with it. So if Auburn does have a chance to get a guy like Derek Smith, it's going to be because they're showing proof of concept that talented players and highly ranked guys want to go to Auburn.
Another guy, Naeem Offord. Ohio State commit. He's visited Auburn before. Hugh Freeze has been really wanting this guy, and I think I've heard he's going to be at Big Cat. Your thoughts about this one? Is this even doable here?
I mean, a lot of people don't know if he's going to be if they see Naeem actually leaving the state. Ohio State is a long way to go, but speaking of Naeem and his father, like they really like Tim Walton and the old school vibes he brings. They're not really into the recruiting process as much as people may think they are. They really just want to play ball. You think about Naeem's brother, Mekhi Hughes, who's the running back at Tulane, had 1,300 yards last year. All Conference USA. What conference is AAC, I believe. Whatever conference Tulane is in. And apologies to the Green Wave. But all conference performer. And this year, when he had a chance to go to the portal, he could have went anywhere he wanted to. there were whispers about guys who wanted to make offers for this running back. He stayed where he was because their family believes in old school principles. So I think that if the Auburn has a shot, it's going to be because of Wesley, Coach Crown, Coach Griff, and his old school principles. That's the only way I see Auburn having a shot because Ohio State is doing a bang up job recruiting him. They keep recruiting him. When I was sitting, I was his player host. I was his host at On3 Elite Media Days. Excuse me, at the On3 Elite Summit in Nashville in May. And when I'm looking at his phone, I'm looking at the text messages. It's Tim Walton. That's who he wants to talk to. That's who he's hitting. And I saw other names in his phone, and I'm looking. He said, "Hey man, Coach Walton, crazy. Look at what he said." So he has a good relationship here, but it's going to take a lot because he is like that. Like make no mistake about it. He's one of the better cornerbacks I've seen in recent memory. Has really good explosion, great ball skills, and he will come up and hit you. So I think that if Auburn has a shot, it's going to be on that combination of Coach Kelly and Coach Crime Dog.
All right. I think I got here. Auburn wants to sign another running back, or they want to get another running back into this class, right? Alvin Henderson is your shifty guy, but you want a guy who's a definite run through the tackles kind of guy. And I think that brings us to running back Usman Chroma out of Georgia. Now, you know
Usman
something
Chroma.
about this guy. You know something about this guy. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, he comes from a football factory in Lee County, South Georgia, not too far from Albany, Georgia. That he plays that old school down south football, smash mouth, invites contact, built like an Avenger already. He can pass for Black Panther. He's one of those guys who just really just looks the part. One of the guys that you want to send off the bus first. Likes Auburn. Auburn had a really slow start recruiting him, so there was a little bit of a sour taste in his mouth. But since Derek Nix has been there, he loves him, and I think that's why you're seeing more motion with Usman Chroma. You're going to see more. You're going to see Georgia push for him, I believe, as the season start, as the recruiting cycle starts to evolve, and you see him his senior film, and you see him put it all together. I mean, he looks different now than he did last year. He's put on more weight. I'd venture to say he's going to play college football at around 225 pounds. I think he has that type of frame. But I think Auburn has a good shot there. Another guy is Dwayne Morris out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, Southern Cal commit. So I think out of those two guys, and I think Shakai Mills Knight is another guy. But I think Chroma is probably the most wanted on that list. And then Dwayne Morris will probably be next. But I think of those three running backs, you'll see one of those three. If not commit at Big Cat, you'll see one of those guys in the class.
Zion Grady is this someone who the staff was after, and I think it came as a surprise when he committed to Ohio State several weeks back. He's expected. Rumor is he's going to be a Big Cat. Your thoughts about where this staff stands with Zion? Obviously, this staff does not give up easily when a kid commits elsewhere. They're still after him hot and heavy. Your thoughts on where Auburn stands with him?
I think as the board continues to break down, you want to get two, but you want another defensive end who can fill out. I think if you get Jared Smith, you still go after Zion Grady because you got to have guys and it takes bodies. You want to be able to keep guys fresh, and I think that's why you continue to recruit a guy like that who may have a similar frame to Jared Smith. Both of those guys are in the 6'6" range. But when you start to look at guys start to recruit by profile, it starts to remind you of the Alabamas. When one guy goes out the game, you replace him with another one. You don't see a drop off in physicality or speed or explosion. And I think that's what Auburn is trying to do by recruiting two guys who have a similar frame. But I think Zion, I think Ohio State is a little far for him to go. He's not afraid to go. I'm not saying that, but if you continue the momentum that they have right now, and you start, like I said earlier, I know Malik Archery's been recruiting them. There are guys in the state of Alabama that are talking about playing together. You talk about Eric Winters, who he's played with before. Like these are guys who are saying, "Hey man, hey, Auburn is the wave." If you see, I'm telling you, Auburn is a powder keg right now. All they need is to light that match. The winning is the match that needs to be lit. Auburn win 9 games this year. I'm calling it right now, top 4 class. They win 9 and beat and win a big one, top 4 easy. I take it to the bank. But if you don't win, then these things it starts to look like, hey, coach, where's the improvement? Because the roster is clearly better than it was last year. and then you're going to
Okay.
have more questions. So I think it's dependent on winning. But yeah, as far as just recruiting goes, I think Auburn has a really good shot at Zion Grady, just as good as a shot as anybody in the country.
Before we get to quarterback, I'm trying to think who else I got listed here. Let's just talk about quarterback. The quarterback situation. Auburn obviously spent a lot of time with Juju,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like they have cooled on Juju for now.
Okay.
Um, they're trying to get either Deuce Knight, KJ Lacey, one of those QBs to show up for Big Cat. Your thoughts about QB recruiting right now? Would you be surprised if one of those guys walked through the door at Big Cat weekend?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think, but I wouldn't be alarmed if they didn't.
Mm,
Reason being, they're both committed to other schools, and there may be some more things that need to be done. You don't want to jeopardize a good thing based on a maybe. I think as Auburn starts to zero in on their guy and make them more comfortable, then you'll see guys start to be more public about their intention of going to Auburn. Because you got to think about it. It's like you're in a relationship. You're in a relationship with somebody. Well, you don't want to piss off the bird in the hand because you're chasing one in the bushes. So at the end of the day,
right.
but if you know you got a bird in the bush, then you're willing to go explore. So at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what it is. I think as Auburn started, like there was no question if Juju was Auburn's guy. Even though he was committed to USC, he knew that if he wanted to commit to Auburn, he was going to be the guy. And
Right.
that cost you a little bit with Deuce Knight because at the end of the day, Deuce Knight wasn't the guy. It was Juju. Juju was the guy that they wanted. So now as they try to, go to the next level. I mean, just imagine you and you're a top flight quarterback, and there's a guy, and you say, well, for the past few months, you haven't really been talking to me. You've been talking to this guy. And now
Right.
that you don't think you're getting this guy, you're coming to me. So I think it is a little bit of an uphill battle, and I think they're going to have to do a really good job of a little bit of damage control. Think about KJ Lacey.
Yeah.
It feels like KJ Lacey would have walked to Auburn if they would have recruited him earlier in the process. But it's going to be hard. I mean, when you get a guy like Steve Sarkisian that says, "Come play for me," you feel that want. You feel like, hey man, this ain't chopped liver.
Yeah.
This is the University of
Yeah.
Texas. So I
Right.
think, yeah, Auburn does have some ground to make up, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one shows, but I wouldn't be alarmed if they don't.
And it's interesting you say you wouldn't be alarmed because I think a lot of Auburn fans would be alarmed if a quarterback doesn't show up for Big Cat. And I think there's a contingency of Auburn fans who feel as though you need another QB in this class, cons- considering the competition that's going to take place after Peyton Thorne leaves after his final year on the Plains. But your thoughts about that in terms of where Auburn post Big Cat intends to approach QB recruiting.
They're gonna get a quarterback. Like, and then there's some quarterbacks that may not be on the message boards and may not be, on Auburn Twitter or the
Yeah,
Reddit boards or any of that or Discord that Auburn is looking at. To be guys develop their senior year. Every year we see guys that have this
yeah,
magical senior year. We just saw with Keelan Russell, the Alabama quarterback who was committed to SMU. He barely had any offers, and then all of a sudden, oh, he grew an inch. Oh, his body filled out. Oh my God, now he's Elite 11 MVP. Like stuff happens. We're talking
yeah.
about teenagers who develop rapidly. So I think there are going to be some guys who are going to spring up the boards, and they're going to say, "Man, I don't know how do we miss this guy." So I think
Yeah.
even if you don't get one of the name brand guys now, and I call them name brand because of the familiarity we have with their names already. But just because you don't get one of those guys don't mean that you won't get a guy. Like you see
Right.
every year, there's a guy that pops up. Holden Garrett popped up. Hank Brown popped up. Like there are guys that they're going to say, okay, we think that he could play in this system, and I think that given the right opportunity, they have the ability to be successful. And I think that Hugh Freeze does want to recruit a high school quarterback. And if you saw like the way Auburn did last year, they could have took two quarterbacks. They chose not to. They literally could have had Aaron Nolan and Walker White. Walker White was their guy. So I think once Hugh Freeze locks in on his guy, and I think he does want a guy with a certain level of athleticism. I think once he locks in on his guy, and it remains to be seen, we don't know who the guy is right now. We're speculating, but we knew when it was Juju. So I think as time goes, we'll start the quarterback, the smoke will start to reveal itself, and we'll be able to read the tea leaves. But I 1000% believe that Auburn gets at least one quarterback in this class.
So you expect I'm thinking I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out here, dude. Because I mean, I don't know. Like Ike, I don't know nothing. But
Mhm.
if I had to guess, I would expect there to be 2 commitments this weekend. One from the
Mm.
2025 class, one from the 2026 class. Because you got some guys who are pretty heavy and leaning Auburn's way from the 2026 class as well. You got guys like Hezekiah Harris. You got guys like linebacker Jermichael Garrett. So there's some names even now for the 2026 class that's going to be. I expect Auburn to get one of those. But again, we already talked about Jared Smith, Anquan Fegans, who decides a little bit after Big Cat weekend. Obviously, they're probably going to hold on to their date so they can have their moment in the sun and not commit when other guys may be committing. But you said you think there may be you expect to see a commitment.
Yeah, I think you can see. I think you'll see maybe at least 2, maybe 3. I think by the end of the month you see at least 4. Like before the start of the season, you'll see 4 to 5 guys commit to Auburn before the start of the season. I put that right now. I think Blake Woodby is another guy you got to watch who could be on commit. Watch the cornerback. I think he's
That's
a
the
guy
guy who I
that.
had.
Yep, I think he's a guy that could commit. What's my man Hezekiah Kent? Another guy. Am I saying that right?
Harris.
Harris. Yeah, Hezekiah is somebody else who I think that could commit. And yeah, I just think that right now you're going to see it happen in the wave. It's going to be for a few days. You're going to see it's going to be Auburn. Just kind of the same way you see this wave of crystal balls. Is the same thing you're going to see when it comes to commitments. You're going to see Hayes Fawcett, Auburn. Hayes, I just talked to Hayes. Hayes said he's like, yeah, he put a tweet out the other night.
Yeah, I
saying,
saw his tweet saying that, that there's going to be quite a few Auburn situations popping off here.
I don't know if you guys remember a couple weeks ago. You might have seen it. I said, man, Alabama's cooking, and then right after that I said, but so is Auburn. Big Cat Weekend is going to be big, and Alabama fans just went crazy like, Big Cat Weekend ain't gonna be big, and then I'm like, bro, listen, I just gave y'all props, bro. I'm not being biased, but if you think that Hugh Freeze can't do nothing else, he can recruit. We have seen that time and time again. If you think Auburn's not gonna get their share, you crazy. And as they start to get, and I'm telling you right now, what happens on the field remains to be seen. But when it goes into leading up to the field, Auburn's gonna stay around that top 10 range for the entire cycle. Like even right now, after Alabama did everything that they just did, and Miami's done what they just did, and LSU is done what they just did, Auburn is still 12. So as they start to get some of these more highly ranked guys, you're going to see the player average continue to rise with the overall commitment go up too. So man, Auburn is in a really good spot, man. And I think by the end of the month, you see 4 to 5 guys, and I think 2 to 3 for Big Cat.
Yeah. Well, we will talk about we will wait to see how Big Cat Weekend unfolds, but it's looking pretty promising. Again, I think we got Auburn has a coaching staff that knows how to close, know how to get kids in and show them something and get in their ear. The season remains to be seen what Auburn does on the field to secure some of these higher sought out recruits. We'll wait and see to be determined.
Oh, let's call out the obvious. Everybody wants to head into the bedroom with confidence and feel like the best version of themselves. But the problem is sometimes our thoughts get in the way of our performance, or maybe we feel like we're just not reaching our full potential. What are your options? Pick up a sketchy gas station pill or get prescribed drugs with a long-lasting side effect. That's where the friends at Joy Mode come in. Imagine a supplement you can take with your favorite green packet that gives you the extra dose of confidence and saves you embarrassment and hassle of a traditional erection pill. Also has the great benefits of helping you with your cardiovascular system to pump blood more seamlessly and effectively to areas of your body that need it, whether you're doing workouts, sexual activities, or regular daily exertion. Make sure you head over to usejoymode.com and you get 20% off and free shipping again when you use code RAPPORT. So for full episodes, check out the Midweek Rapport, going live on the War Rapport's YouTube channel at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, Wednesday nights. Until the next time, War Eagle.